Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Genesis, and welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm a fellow here at LegacyWise, and along this presentation, you'll meet two people in our team. That's going to be Jake Carnot and Matt Braino. Both of them will guide you through this webinar, giving you ample information and ample time to answer your questions at the end. With that said, we are glad that we can gather with ministry leaders and committed to the stewardship of God's gift with excellence. So I'm going to go through the slides. I just kind of like I'll tell you a little bit more about planning and ministry partnerships. It's pretty much to secure your legacy and advance God's work. So we'll be starting momentarily, and if we can go to the next slide. So let's learn a little bit about what LegacyWise is and what we do. So here at LegacyWise, we emphasize biblical principles of stewardship to assist believers to be wise and faithful stewards. This is to serve all, regardless of their faith, help ministry build their endowments. So with that said, Jake, please go ahead and tell us a little bit more about LegacyWise.
Genesis, thank you for the introduction. I'm actually going to introduce Matt Braino, who's going to be taking you through a little bit about estate planning. He'll give you an introduction into kind of some of the do's and don'ts, and hopefully answer some of the questions that you have. But I'll let Matt take on from here, and I will come into the presentation a little bit later.
That sounds great, Jake. Thank you so much. Well, it's really great to be with all of you today. As Jake and Genesis mentioned, my name is Matthew Branagh. I'm an attorney and based in Maine, and I've been part of LegacyWise here for about 2 years. And we're really excited to share today about what LegacyWise does and how it works, and the really, really unique opportunity for churches and ministries to be a part of something that we think is really important for stewardship purposes and for really just serving and blessing the congregants in your churches and those that you serve through your ministries. As a way to do that, we just want to talk a little bit about what estate planning is. I think that that's just a good way to give you all a little bit of a foundation about what we're talking about here. And then it just naturally flows into many of the things that Jake will cover here as well, as far as how we work with churches and ministries like yours. So what is estate planning? I think maybe a very simple way of describing this is that it's anything involving a person's decisions regarding how their assets get distributed or how their children are cared for after they die. That's just a very kind of high level view. We're really talking about these important things that are a part of a person's life and what happens to those things after they pass away. So let's just talk a little bit about why that's important. We know that in many respects, it's about setting a roadmap. People don't necessarily love to think about these things. It's not a pleasant thought to think about passing away and what that means, at least as far as what we know here on Earth. And so many people just avoid talking about it or thinking about it. And establishing a roadmap is really critical, though. We know that we want to see, assets get distributed the way that we'd like. We want to see our kids cared for by people who we know and trust. And we also want other people involved with critical decisions that we know and trust. And estate planning helps set forth that whole process. But if we don't talk about it, if we don't establish the roadmap, then those things start to get shifted in ways that we may or may not love. We know that, when we look at research, surveys, just kind of understanding Americans and where they're at in the estate planning process, there's about 70% of Americans who have not done this. And that means that in your church or in your ministry, 7 out of 10 people that you serve don't have these documents. They're not in a position to have these assets distributed or their guardianship of their children decided by their preferences. And why is that important? Why does it matter? Well, because it means that they die, and the legal term is intestate. And that means that the state decides those things. State law will decide how their assets get distributed. State law will decide who cares for their children. And I think that we would all agree that's not a very optimal outcome. So, how do we fix this? What are the remedies here? Well, we know that we believe that most believers want to be good and wise stewards in completing estate documents if they were to sit down and do them. We know that many don't do it, and it's because, again, it's too difficult, too expensive, maybe even scary. And we also know that we're about to embark upon an unprecedented moment in human history, and that is this upcoming wealth transfer of over $84 trillion by 2045. So there's a lot that needs to get done, and thankfully, LegacyWise is uniquely positioned to fix this problem and to do it in collaboration with you all. And that's really in getting documents set that legally meet the laws of a person's home state. And LegacyWise's unique proprietary software and workshops can do that with individuals and couples, and they can do them in very effective and efficient ways. So let's talk a little bit about what are the documents that are needed. What are the things that a person should set or a couple should set? And we know, and many of you probably already know this, that's most commonly done through a will. A will that helps kind of dictate things like, again, how assets will get distributed, who's going to care for children, who's going to be a personal representative. And then another option is a trust, which typically spells out the same things as a will. But then there's also a companion pour-over will that helps ensure that the assets that are involved are appropriately handled through the trust and that the trust has the funding needed in order to be administered. But again, sort of outlines the typical assets and guardianship questions that a will handle. And LegacyWise actually recommends a trust option, which we'll go into a little bit more in a moment. And then lastly, there's also documents related to powers of attorney. Powers of attorney for financial affairs, and then powers of attorney for health-related decisions. And individuals have the opportunity to appoint people that they know and trust to handle these types of critical roles, again, in the processes of their estates, and even in some instances before they die, when they may become incapacitated and not able to make those decisions the way they normally would under normal circumstances. So what we're going to do here, we're going to actually share a video on the next slide that we're really excited about. It goes further into the differences between a will and a trust, and you'll see very quickly why a trust is something that LegacyWise recommends. But what we're especially excited about in sharing this video is this actually gives you a taste of what LegacyWise does in a workshop that we host with your church or ministry. And you'll see very quickly, we do these things in very simple and understandable terms, in very simple and understandable ways. And it gives people an education without finding themselves feeling too confused. So we'll go ahead and advance here and watch the video here about a will and a trust and the differences between the two.
How to choose between a will and a trust. There are two ways to plan for how things should be divided up after you die. One is by using a will. Another is by using a trust. A will is a public document describing how you want your things handled after your death. It is quick to write. However, a will must be filed with a court. It is able to be seen by the public, and a judge must review and rule on it before your family and friends receive your things. This process can be long, difficult, and expensive. A trust is a private document describing how you want your things handled now and after your death. Trusts require a bit more work up front, such as titling bank accounts in the trust's name. However, in return, a trust stays private, allows family and friends to receive your things quickly, and does not need to be seen or ruled upon by a court. Plus, a trust can protect you during your lifetime, should you become disabled. LegacyWise toolkits are designed to help you get your choice of will or trust done in a day.
So that hopefully gives you a better sense of wills and trusts, how those work, and then also more importantly here for our purposes today, understanding how we go about educating people who go through these LegacyWise workshops. So we've talked again about why we know that about 70% of Americans have not done these documents. And again, surveys tell us that it's cost, it's time, maybe even a belief that that people don't own enough to even matter. We think of estate planning as maybe something that's for maybe the rich. And the reality is, it doesn't have to take a lot of costs and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. And truthfully, most people have uh, assets in the form of home ownership that make estate planning very, very important. And of course, we know people that have minor children and they wish to see them cared for in a manner they desire if they were to pass away. So this is where LegacyWise steps in, and we really believe there's a better way to do this. We think that we can do this in a way that cuts down on those costs and time. And as you can see here through this comparison slide, LegacyWise checks a lot of boxes. We believe in biblical stewardship. We believe we have a process in partnership with ministries and churches like yours where people can go through and get all of this done in what amounts to about a day. We think it's a user-friendly experience, simple, understandable ways of understanding these things. And we also do so in a way that we believe cost will not be a barrier. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. Now, of course, people can go through a custom law firm, and there are times and places where a law firm makes sense. If there's a high net worth individual or household, that certainly might make sense. But the unique thing with LegacyWise is we could still even create documents that then can be used for an individual or household to then go on and get that specialized work done with a custom law firm. And then, of course, there's these other online services. And we believe that we check a lot of boxes that these online services do not. And we won't go into all of the specifics here. But one thing that we will highlight or note is that research does show a lot of people who start with those services don't ultimately finish them and get documents that are executed. And it's because they run into questions or problems going through that process and they become frustrated and they give up. So LegacyWise is again uniquely designed to overcome those kinds of barriers, walking alongside people through our workshops and through these tools that we've developed in order to ensure that these estate planning documents get done. And this is a great time for me to go ahead and turn it over to Jake so that he can talk more about how a workshop with your church or ministry can really move the needle as far as helping people in your church get these things done.
Thank you, Matt. So now that we've learned a bit about LegacyWise, we've learned a little bit about estate planning and the importance of it, the necessity of it. I'd like to share with you about what a LegacyWise workshop entails. Okay, on average, a LegacyWise workshop takes anywhere between as brief as 40 minutes if it's something that is one-on-one, or upwards of 2 to 3 hours if we have a large group. So, and what the workshop entails is users, they come in, whether it's via group or in a virtual setting, and they actually prepare their own documents. Okay, so they're going to sit down and they're going to answer questions that address things like Matt, had talked about, right? Guardianship for minor children, responsible personal representatives, the distribution of your assets and identifying who those beneficiaries are going to be. We provide advanced directive documents, healthcare proxy, and financial durable power of attorney. There's also questions that are going to outline optional charitable giving, right? So the ability and the building of kingdom giving plans. And as I mentioned, right, we provide these in a group setting. We also provide these in a one-on-one setting. So some folks who may not want to come and sit through a group workshop may find it more beneficial or more comfortable to have a LegacyWise ambassador or a LegacyWise employee sit down with them either in person or virtually and work through this process with them. So how does a user create their documents, right? A little glimpse into how the system works is there is a set amount of questions, as I mentioned in the previous slide, and as the user answers those questions, the system will take that information and generate documents behind the scenes, right? So once the workshop has completed, users will have a 45-day grace period or a window to be able to go in and to change any of those workshop questions, add in new material, subtract material, right? Because we also understand that in a workshop, no matter how prepared someone may be, they may have changes. They may go home and think over some things and go, you know what, I got to make an adjustment here. And all they need to do is simply log back into the platform and very easily make that change. So, and one thing that, you know, we're very proud of here at LegacyWise is if you are sitting at home and you're trying to think through those things and you're like, well, you know what, I don't know exactly how to do this or this, you know, which direction should I go here? You can simply contact one of the LegacyWise team members and we'll walk you through that. One thing that I would like to point out is I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to provide legal advice. So as Matt had mentioned, there are going to be circumstances where you may need to seek legal advice for some specific custom language that has to be entered into your documents. And LegacyWise team, we're going to be very straightforward and upfront in regards to those, the information that we don't know. And that's because we have a desire to serve you well. We have a desire for you to be comfortable with the information and the decisions that you've made, and know that after you're gone, these documents are going to work for you, and your family is going to be enveloped in peace, and there isn't going to be that strife and confusion after you're gone. And I think that is, I know at least personally in my life, with my family, that is one of the biggest things that I want to seek through my estate documents is family peace and for that roadmap to be clear. So speaking of cost, I wanted to speak on cost briefly. It sounds like a sales gimmick, but cost is not a barrier, is part of our foundation. We conduct this as a ministry. We conduct this as a service. We want everyone to receive documents, okay? And we do so, we have several different, you're going to see a lot of different numbers here, okay? There is an initial registration fee. So on average, well, not on average, it's $20 per person for a group setting with $40 for a couple. If someone would like to have the full attention of the facilitator or the LegacyWise ambassador, and they want to schedule a one-on-one, that's a $100 registration fee. And then the document fee itself is unique. So our suggested document fee is 1% of a person or a couple's annual income, with a floor of $79 and a ceiling of $2,500. Okay, there's not going to be an instance where we, for the document fees, we're going to go beyond the $2,500 threshold there. Okay, we have several payment options to ensure that people are they're able to pay the document fee and have comfort in the fact that the service we provide comes in at about a third of the cost of if you're going to go in to a law firm. Okay, so that's the base there, but also we understand that people go through different times of hardship. They all have different circumstances. So we provide what's called a self-discounting option, where if at the end of the workshop, we get the total plan cost and that number comes up and you go, you know what, I can't pay that right now. The self-discounting option is you simply type in a number that works for you. So an example would be 1% of annual income. So say I make $50,000 a year, 1% of that would be $500. That would be my document fee. And say that $500 was too steep. Maybe just in this time in my life, I'm not able to pay that. I can simply type in a number that does work. So as you can see, our goal here is to serve people well. Our goal here is for folks to get documents. So as a way to grow your legacy, right? And we're shifting a little bit here from user pricing into how, as an organization, and this is applicable to an individual, right? How do you grow your legacy? And one of the ways that you can do that as a ministry leader for your congregation or for your ministry in general is by becoming a LegacyWise sponsoring organization. Okay, some of the benefits here. First of all, we work primarily with churches and other charities, organizations. We also work with non-religious organizations, and we can come in and provide this service as an employee benefit. LegacyWise, unlike many other providers, if not all other providers of a service like this, we don't charge the sponsor or the ministry, the church, for us to come in and provide the service. In fact, we share 20% of the revenue of all of the document fees. We give that back to the hosting organization or to the sponsor. Okay, and we do so as a support for their mission, as a support for their ministry, as a thank you, right? As a hosting organization, you're opening up your building, you're providing some seating, you may be providing some snacks, right? We want to say thank you for that. We want to say thank you for letting us into your organization and allowing us to serve your congregants, your members, the community in which you serve. We want to say thank you for that. So we give you back 20% of the revenue share of, or 20% share of all the revenue for the document fees made through that workshop. And one thing that we're very proud of is nearly 100% of our sponsoring organizations have invited us back for repeats, right? For more and more workshops, right? And we see this as a very natural thing. I conduct locally a workshop here for a church where the pastor has us come back. It seems almost every 3 to 6 months. As he has more interest out of his congregation, he gives me a call and says, "Hey, Jake, why don't you come in and run another workshop for us?" As their congregation grows, they use this as a ministry. They reach out to the community, and it gets people into the church, gets those introductions made, and growth happens. So a lot of benefits here to becoming a sponsoring organization. And a little bit more into the nitty gritty, right? For those ministry leaders out there, for those folks who are, you're pastoring a church, or you're sitting on an elder board, or you have, any type of charitable organization, ministry, right? Our completion rates are, for a group workshop, sits over 85% completion rate. That means a user who comes in and sits at a LegacyWise workshop gets fully to the execution of their documents, right? Their trust, their will has been notarized, it's signed, it's in place, it's completed. One thing with other services, a lot of online services, they are about half of the completion rate. So they're sitting right around 40%. And a big piece of that is the fact that we come in and we personally guide your users. We personally guide folks through this process. And in that guidance, right, we give some homework, we give some encouragement, and we really try to get people to get through this on their own, but with guidance, right? So documents with ministry gifts is over 65% of our documents also have ministry gifts in there, meaning as a hosting organization, the reason why we host this in your building, in your ministry, to your members, are these folks they want to give back. They want to see the ministry grow. They want to give to enhance the kingdom and see that further, right? So our average planned ministry gift per document user, and there's going to be another slide after this that kind of pictures it a little bit better, is $25,000 on average per document set, which represents a family or an individual, right? So doing some simple math in your head, if you had 10 families come in for a workshop, on average, those families are each going to give $25,000 of planned giving out of their estate documents or out of their estate to the hosting organization, right? So that's huge. Growing endowment for your ministry and for your organization. Our average ministry gift of last resort, meaning if every heir within the family has passed and there's no one left, right? Obviously the state of domicile would be glad to step in and receive that estate, but we put provisions in there for people to be able to leave that in that rare occasion that happens. We see over $1 million per document set given to the hosting organization. I already mentioned our revenue share with ministries, our nearly 100% callback, and our user satisfaction is through the roof. We have a lot of very loving users who have come back and just said thank you over and over again for the help that we provided. So it's a very fulfilling part of my job, and I know many of the LegacyWise ambassadors and staff. That's really the main reason why we're doing what we're doing. So again, this is that slide I had mentioned. So this is specific to the 2024 year. Planned givings average per document set was $28,000. That's per family to the hosting organization. And you can see the exact number for contingent giving, gift of last resort to the hosting organization. And really the big piece here is without LegacyWise, this would have been zero, right? So now, the last thing I want to touch on before we dive into Q&A is how does LegacyWise help you get there, right? And I've talked about LegacyWise ambassadors and this guidance. Well, so these LegacyWise ambassadors, we actually we have coined the phrase estate document Sherpa, right? And a Sherpa is in the hiking and climbing world, right, is a guide, someone who helps you up that path, helps you to the summit, to the peak, and helps you complete that, what tends to be a difficult process, right? And as Matt had mentioned earlier on, creating your estate documents can be daunting. And unfortunately, right, everyone looks at it as this huge daunting task. And they also see it as something that can be expensive. They can see it as, or maybe I have to do this independently. Well, we're taking all of that out of there, right? There's going to be some work. There's going to be a bit of a climb, but the good thing is we're going to be your Sherpa, and we're going to help carry that load. We're going to help guide along the way. We're going to see you through all the way to completion, right? So from the moment you register for a workshop, you're going to be receiving guiding emails that are going to help you through. You have our contact information. You're going to go through the workshop where we're going to provide guidance on each question. And then we're going to help you through signings. We're going to help you not only create your documents, but we're going to help you notarize, sign them. We're going to give you resources and help you through funding your trust. And you know, the many questions that come into play, you know, obviously if they are if there's more legal technical items that need to be addressed, we provide even through our active states, which I'm going to discuss here in a second. We have a network of attorneys that we've used to help audit and kind of check our documents to make sure that state by state they are compliant with all statutes. Those attorneys have come on board to help you through if that custom work is needed. So with that, I would like to open it up to any Q&A, any questions that folks may have, whether it's on an individual basis. Maybe you're looking to get your estate documents done, or perhaps you are a ministry leader and you'd like to know, how can I bring this in? What are some different areas that I need to know before I can bring this into our church? Or into our ministry, or as an employer, I'd like to offer this as an employee benefit, which I think is an amazing concept and an amazing option in which we provide. So, Genesis, do you know if there was any questions brought up in the chat? Was there anything that somebody had voiced or virtually on the chat for us to go over?
Jake, thank you for referring to the chat. So right now, I do not see any questions in the chat. So I think it might be better to open the questions to the public.
Great. Thank you, Genesis, for just managing that chat. Is there any questions from participants? Anybody who would like to break the silence and venture a question for us?
I have a question. Do you have material that I could share with decision makers that would give them a high level, I don't know, just something that's, not a 30-minute presentation?
Yes, sir. Of course. So Nick, I have, and just to let everyone know, right through Eventbrite, right, you've registered, we have your email addresses. If you put one in there, we're going to send a couple different, we have some newsletter stuff, but as you just requested, we definitely have some high level. I have a 2-pager that will just give ins and outs of all the different pieces, everything I discussed today that you can easily email on. And with that as well, when it comes to workshops, we have several PDFs, which I'd be happy to send upon request, but they're more towards the user individually on explaining the difference between wills and trusts, the advanced directives, and just that info, because we understand that people may be coming into this process cold and haven't done any research. So thank you for that question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else like to venture a question?
Another question from me, just probably last one. How many people do you send on site typically?
Good question. So that depends on the size of the workshop. So we've had, let's see, this past winter, I was out in New York, Seneca, New York. You can actually see that workshop is up in the upper left. We had 17 document sets. So we had 17 different families in the room. And it was me and one other representative. We went out and ran the workshop. But if it's a much smaller workshop and it can be handled by one LegacyWise team member, then we'll do that. But we understand that there could be simultaneous questions going on, and we want to be able to serve you well. If there was a specific request for a larger team, we'll honor that. We also, if you're representing a smaller organization and you'd like to open this up regionally and have several organizations come into one central location for a workshop, we can help facilitate that and set that up for you. There's a lot of customization behind the scenes to be done upon your request at no charge to help you kind of set up whatever would work best for you and your organization.
All right, got it.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to the next slide. The Q&A is still open, so please feel free to ask any questions. This may cause a couple more questions, but LegacyWise, so we're currently active in 11 states. Okay, those active states are here: Maine, New Hampshire, Mass, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida. We can go to these states in person and provide workshops. We can also provide workshops via Zoom virtually, which sounds a little intimidating for planning your estate documents virtually, but it's a fantastic tool, and we found a lot of success with it. And you can see the list on the right side of your screen here. We're coming soon to Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Georgia, Texas, and California. And our plan is to be nationwide active by the end of 2026.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm listening from Canada, so I'm just wondering how relevant all these things that's happening in the States is to us in Canada.
Well, for one, thank you for listening in. And secondly, currently, our services aren't available in Canada. Lord willing, I would love to see us move into other countries. We are happy to provide any type of resources that we can, but we're currently not active in Canada.
Yeah. Okay. So what I mean is all these legal side of things, are they relevant in Canada?
Well, not being a lawyer, I don't know the answer to that question.
Jake, I'll jump in for a second. So,
please, thank you, Matt.
Canadian law, which I'm not familiar with either, but I can tell you just at a very high level right away, there would be different requirements in order for any estate planning that's done in Canada, and it's possible it could even vary by province, right? It could be a certain way with one versus another, and so it would be really important to talk to someone who's licensed to practice law in Canada to know what those differences and those nuances are. Now, one thing I'll just add, and if I speak out of turn here, Jake, please chime in. But depending on where you are in Canada, if you're perhaps even on the border with the United States and you have people who are U.S. citizens that maybe come over and attend your church, there could be a way to still, serve them, with a workshop that's here in the U.S., assuming that the state that they reside in is one that we've, become active in. So there could be a way to still maybe, do some partial work to help those that you serve if in fact you find yourself geographically set up that way. But it just depends on where you are and the types of people who are attending. If they're all from Canada, then you're likely looking at having to figure out a different path. But if there are some from the US, there's still maybe a possibility we could help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that question. Okay, so I'll give a last couple minutes here for any Q&A. Again, if you've submitted your email, you're going to receive, and again, we're not going to inundate your inboxes with piles of marketing material, but we're just going to send you some very basic high-level things that if you're interested in moving forward, there's also going to be a questionnaire when you leave this webinar. It's 4 questions. It's if you would like follow-up information, then we're going to answer that and we're going to be in touch. I noticed that there is a question here in the chat. Is there services similar to ours in Oregon? I'm not sure if there are services with the same foundational principles and with the same structure as ours anywhere. But obviously there are online services that provide obviously what we provide as an end game. One thing I do want to mention is LegacyWise is looking for more LegacyWise ambassadors, and we are looking for new states to expand to where a LegacyWise ambassador resides and would then be able to grow that within that state. So, Aaron, I appreciate your question regarding services in Oregon. Currently, we're not in that state, but if there was, obviously there's a reason for us to be in that state, but if there was a clear and present avenue for us to get there, meaning someone who would like to represent us in that state, then we are very open to that conversation. So, and very open to anybody who is interested in becoming a LegacyWise ambassador. That is a whole other conversation, but it's a very, very promising position, and whether it would be full-time or supplemental, extremely flexible. I don't want to spend too much time on that. One thing I will, if I can go back a couple screens here, this QR code, if you scan that, will bring you to more information on the LegacyWise ambassador, the estate planning Sherpa. And we have an application or a way to apply for that position on LinkedIn if you go to our LinkedIn. So again, great question. Thank you very much for voicing that. Any other questions or other areas of estate planning? We do have a little bit of extra time, so if anybody wants to open things up, we can certainly do that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much for attending. As I said, there is a questionnaire that's coming out once you leave this room. Please do us a favor. There's a request for feedback. We can't get better unless you tell us where we need to get better, right? So if you thought this webinar answered your questions and was a valuable use of your time, please let us know. Or if you feel that we should tweak some things, explain some things better, or maybe, you know, it's like, hey, you got to get rid of the bald guy who was talking too much, type that in there, let me know. Okay. We look forward to serving you. And again, we'll have some information for you coming your way. If it's not today, it'll be tomorrow morning. So thank you very much. And I hope you all have a blessed day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.